building in the 60s, maths and chemistry. And the sleep still here, and other councillors on this momentous occasion. Now, tell us why we're actually here on this date. Jean.
Edward Kemp.
No, but why particularly today?
You have to educate me on this.
Oh, yeah. We're celebrating two things simultaneously. We're celebrating Edward Kemp, obviously, but we're also celebrating the 170th anniversary of the opening of the park. This is the start of the 170th anniversary year. Now, regretfully, I can't offer you the sorts of entertainment that would be available then, but perhaps later on, Chris, you might want to participate in a run for women of all ages, and John, perhaps you'd like to participate in the grinning competition through 6 courses. That must have been quite a challenge. And we can all participate in Catch the Pig competition. These were all so-called normal sports, which I think, as historians, you would simply see as mechanisms of social control over the lower class. But this is really a momentous year for us, because it's going to be followed, this event here, in October. Would you like to say something about this fantastic event?
So we've been contracted by the Wirral Urban Parks Association, and they've asked if they could have their European Congress, to which people from around the world come, in Birkenhead Park and on the Wirral in the middle of October this year. We've already got a fantastic range of speakers, and it's all as a result of Birkenhead Park.
Isn't that really excellent news? For Birkenhead Park, for Birkenhead and the Wirral in general. This huge international organisation coming here, it's really fantastic. And I'd like to thank you all, but also particularly Conservation Areas of Wirral, Alan Shape, Peter and Gillian both, and all the other committee members. I'd like to thank Mary and the team Birkenhead. It's really good to see some of the key staff with us today. And of course all the volunteers and friends. And in particular, I'm sure it'll be really delicious what awaits us later on, the Wirral Met catering department and the students that have put together such a feast. So, without further ado, can I turn to Elizabeth? And I'm sure everyone knows Elizabeth. So indefatigable, committed, the world's foremost expert on Edward Kemp, and she's going to say a few words before we move outside.
Well, before I move on to Edward Kemp, I think we perhaps need another round of applause, because you are sitting in what must be a much envied visitor centre, and you will see in the room people wearing maroon tops. The Friends started in 1976. You will see elected members who worked with the Friends and together got us, but with the leadership of Robert, this wonderful building. So before we remember Ken, let's give Robert, who is behind everything, a round of applause. Well, I won't shame you by saying hands up anybody who before today had never heard of Edward Kemp, because I think there might be quite a forest of hands. And in fact, had we gone back 10 years ago, there would have been many more Friends putting their hands up. But Edward Kemp is responsible to a very great deal for the park that we celebrate. We're here to celebrate two things: a unique place and, to some extent, a unique person. Before I go on to Kemp, we must not, and Robert could have emphasised it perhaps a teeny bit more, the huge importance of our park. The time when parks throughout the country, the future of parks, is very much threatened. We must remember that our park is unique. We take it for granted. It's always been there. We notice the improvements. But when it was created, it was the first municipally funded park anywhere. There have been other public parks. There have been royal parks in London. There have been parks that were presented by, wealthy manufacturers, landowners and so on. There'd even been places like in Preston, Wirral Park, that was enclosed from the common. But this was the first publicly funded park where the Birkenhead Improvement Commissioners, the elected body responsible for the newly grown town, had the foresight and the imagination to purchase a large area of land and to create this iconic park. The person that they engaged to design it was probably the leading landscape architect of the 19th century, someone we've all heard of, Joseph Paxton. Paxton came, he had a plan drawn up, and because his experience was very much that of large country estates, the park that we see here is based on the sort of thing you might have seen at Chatsworth: open greensward, carriage drives, pedestrian walkways, lakes, close planting. But Paxton was an extremely busy man, far too busy to undertake the personal supervision of the park himself. So he suggested to the commissioners that in 1843 they bring up a young man, still in his 20s, Edward Kemp, to take on the role of park superintendent and the day-to-day supervision of that park. And Kemp was to remain for nearly half a century, living on the park's perimeter, closely involved in every aspect of its development. Now, he's often and very wrongly described as Paxton's apprentice. Paxton didn't have sent an apprentice here. He was sending a fully qualified landscape gardener. Kemp had trained at what would be today rather like a horticulture college, the Horticultural Society of London. He trained there, he'd been taken on there, and from there he went to Chatsworth, and then he came here. He lived first in the tiny lodge, then he lived in Park Road West. His house is still there with his initials on the gable. But we tend to look at him just from the perspective of Birkenhead. In fact, he was known for commissions throughout the country. He designed parks, he designed cemeteries, he designed grounds for asylums and schools and convalescent homes. He even designed some little new towns, Birkdale, for instance, on our way to Southport. So he was very well known for his park work and other commissions. And if you're interested, and I will put the leaflets on the table, we are actually celebrating his work in Cheshire with 3 more guided walks around some of the parks that he was responsible for designing at Congleton, at Crewe, and at Frodsham. But he was also an author, and I'm not suggesting you rush out and order on Amazon how to lay out a garden intended as a general guide in choosing, forming, or improving an estate, because none of us have the time to follow all these very, very, very detailed instructions. But he was an author, ran 3 editions and the 4th edition in America. And he is the man who we celebrate today, 200 years since his birth, just opposite Streatham Common. Those of you who might know London, he was actually born in Greyhound Lane. There's still a pub there, the Greyhound, though not the pub his father probably frequented, and there was another force. And Kemp himself is buried in Flame. So he's very much part, for nearly half a century, of the fabric of Birkenhead, of which we are all so proud. If you want to buy a history of the ups and downs of parks, because it wasn't always plain sailing, was it? I'm afraid there were occasions when the park users were not as law-abiding, even in the days of the park police, as they might have been. But we have out there to purchase People's Garden. But it is wonderful that we're all here and that people from all over the world are coming in October because of the importance of Birkenhead Park, Paxton's design, but Kemp's live work. Thank you very much.
Right, well, we're pretty well back on track now, back on time. So I'm going to invite all of you to wander outside for the actual unveiling of this of Edward Kemp's plaque. So, I'd like to wander outside.
Welcome you all here today. I hope you can hear my voice, quite a loud voice. Particularly welcome to the leader of the council, Councillor Phil Davis, the ward councillor, Councillor Bernie Mooney, Councillor Chris Meaden, and Frank Field, MP. Professor Rod, I won't choose, sorry, you were hidden behind that guy. If you duck, I would have seen you.
Get off your knees.
And of course, Councillor Jean Stapleton and Professor Robert Lee. Thank you very much. And that was interesting what you said, Professor, about Aldershot School, and Elizabeth with the history of Edward Kemp, who we're here for today. This is the second unveiling by Conservation Wirral, in conjunction with Wirral Council and the Heritage Fund, possible money which we have. It's great to see the collaboration and the working together with the council. I know there's a number of council officers here today because it means so much to all concerned, and I know that collaboration has been very fruitful and worthwhile. So we're here today for, as I say, Edward Kemp. April, forgive me while I read some of these notes. April the 5th, 1847, exactly 170 years ago today, was a key date in the history of Birkenhead and indeed the whole of the Wirral. There's a few facts here which I didn't realise. That year was the opening of the Birkenhead docks, the opening of the dock warehouses, the opening of the extension of the railway line between Chester and Birkenhead. I never knew that. Now, perhaps most significantly, and the reason we're here today, is the formal opening, of course, of Birkenhead Park, the first publicly funded park, as we know, in the world. So, you know, this park, it is of global significance, and this is just another milestone that we heard earlier on, and there's been numerous over the years following the reputation of this park. And as Elizabeth said, everybody knows the park was designed by Joseph, later Sir Joseph Paxton, the gardener, of course, to the Duke of Devonshire, and the creator of the Crystal Palace. However, he was far too busy, of course, to have time to supervise the work. So, at his suggestion, a superintendent was appointed to be responsible for the implementation of the final plans. The individual selected was a young landscape gardener, which was Edward Kemp, who had worked for Paxton at Chatsworth. He arrived in Birkenhead in 1843 to begin laying out the park, and he remained living on the edge of the park for the rest of his life. And as Elizabeth told us, she gave us a bit of a history where he actually lived. And by one of those strange coincidences of history, 2017 is not only the 170th anniversary of the opening of the park, but the bicentenary of Edward Kemp himself. So it is Kemp who we're here, of course, to remember today. And the park, of course, in all its splendour, is his work. So it is right and proper that he is commemorated. And what a more fitting reminder of his life than a blue plaque bearing his name. This is the second blue plaque to be erected by Conservation Areas Wirral, as I said, with the support of the Wirral Council's Heritage Fund. And we look forward to commemorating more key people in Wirral's history like Edward Kemp. Can I just say, before we unveil it, the other blue plaque that was unveiled, the first one, which was by myself, was outside Tranmere Rovers' ground, which was for Dixie Dean, the great Dixie Dean. And I believe the players, it's outside the changing rooms, and I believe the players, before they go in, touch the plaque, and it's obviously given them some luck as they were up there. So that's great news, isn't it? And of course they're doing so well as Wirral's Premier football team, so that's fantastic. Okay, we'll actually unveil it now. So I have great pleasure in unveiling this work, celebrating Edward Kemp, his life and his work. If we can give a countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great.
Very good.
With you and the mayor in front of the flat, maybe. You think that's a good idea?